Brought to you by PrayLatin.com, makers of prayer cards featuring complete English phonetic renderings of Latin pronunciations. One of the duties of the Church, and especially of the Roman Pontiff and of those men in the hierarchy of the Church and the Roman Curia who work directly for him, one of their duties in the world is to answer and respond to the development of modern horrors. We live in a time where people joke about we seeing and living through horrors that our forefathers could not have comprehended. We're in the month of June. We should be obvious what some of those kinds of modern horrors are that we're talking about. But that one is not the subject of this video. No, we have a development from the world of science that really shows us that the Church must be steadfast and unambiguous in its defense of doctrine and dogma and everything decent, basic human dignity, as conceived in the timeless teachings of the Church. Christ's truths about human dignity are the answer to the evils you're about to see. And I'm going to start here with a call to action from a cardinal, not a call to action towards you. He challenged the new pope. He addressed these words to him almost 2 weeks ago now, but now suddenly they're very, very relevant to what we're going for, the story we're covering today. So we go to the pillar with this headline. Cardinal Eijk, JP2 Institute and Pontifical Academy for Life must be clear and unambiguous. We have to transmit the truth about marriage and about marital things. That may be difficult, but it is possible. You know, it's worth noting, he said this in the aftermath of Pope Leo XIV appointing an actually really terrible person to have a prominent voice at the Pontifical Academy for Life. I covered that in a previous video. But the JP2 Institute has to be unambiguous. It has to unequivocally defend the truths of the faith. It has to defend human dignity. And it has to do so with clarity and actual purpose, and with a certain level of charity, of course, in its discourse with the world. And here we see what the Cardinal has to say about this before we go to the actual reason I'm bringing this to your attention today. It's from the article, quote, Cardinal Wilhelm Eijk of Utrecht has a reputation among his brother cardinals as a clear and outspoken voice on issues of life and bioethics. His plain-spoken manner, typical of a Dutchman, has earned him critics too, both inside and outside the Church, both in the Netherlands and abroad. But it has also earned him a reputation for clarity in times of confusion, especially in a country like the Netherlands, which has pioneered the legalization and practice of sacrificing people to Moloch in various ways, as well as James Martin's parody of holy matrimony and activism about those who are confused about the immutable reality of the flesh. Cardinal Eijk, a self-described pillar reader, in a good way, he says, gave the inaugural lecture of the Third International Bioethics Conference, organized by the Jerome Lejeune Foundation in Rome, to discuss science and bioethics in the service of truth. After his talk, Eijk spoke with the pillar about Catholicism and bioethics, Evangelium Vitae, and the mission of the Pontifical Academy for Life and the pontificate of Leo XIV. The interview has been edited for length and brevity. He says, what do you see as the role and need for bioethics today, especially from a Christian perspective? And this is where it gets relevant. We have to contrast with this present culture, which does not recognize the intrinsic value of human life. Our task is to transmit the truth about God, man, and the world, and also metaphysical truths, and the truth concerning moral values and norms. And perhaps we haven't had much success in the world these days. You see the growing number of sacrifices of the most young to Moloch. For instance, in the US last year, there were almost 1 million of these procedures. You see the decision that the French Parliament took last year to place a right to promote that sacrifice to women in the Constitution, and a few days ago to legalize the other form of sacrificing to Moloch. It's a growing problem. But nevertheless, we should not give up. We should not lose courage. In the last few years, I've seen in the Netherlands every year a growing number of young people asking to be admitted to the Church. Not as many as in France, but is clear tendency. And these young people discover Christ and the gospel, also the moral teachings of the Church, through the internet, TikTok, social media. You would not expect it, but it is so. And when they come to a priest in order to ask for baptism or confirmation, they already know a surprising amount about faith because they read a lot about Catholicism on the internet and social media. These young people are inclined to accept the whole doctrine of the Church. So I think that there's a generational shift in the Church. Things will change and are changing already. End quote. And he goes on to throw down the gauntlet to Pope Leo XIV, which is to say this. The John Paul II Institute and every other arm of the Roman Curia that deals with the subject of bioethics in any way has to be clear and unambiguous, and has to stand up for the truths of the faith. I go over this interview with him in greater detail in another live stream recently, so check on that if you would like to see it. But the point here is this. This is an absolute necessity, and I'm going to show you why. Prepare for horrors inconceivable to science fiction writers. We go to LifeSite News for this horror story. Headline from LifeSite News. IVF companies slammed for screening out babies with undesired genetics. This is evil. Orchid Health and Nucleus Embryo are facing backlash for helping clients weed out unwanted babies based on their genetic traits. If that sounds like something from the 1930s and 1940s, you are not mistaken. The scientific community has wanted this desperately. And it only went out of vogue during World War II and afterwards. But it came back in a sanitized silk glove version in the years after. Now it's fully back. And most people kind of go ho-hum, or why can't I choose what color my kid's eyes are? Or shouldn't I know if my kid's going to have fill-in-the-blank problem? Shouldn't I be able to pay a little money and take care of the problem? Make good arguments, divorced completely from any kind of traditional theological or moral framework. But in the moral framework of pure utilitarianism, pure moral relativism, their arguments are compelling. This is why we need clear teaching. From the article, as well as we can cover it on this platform, quote, priests, social activists, and others are criticizing companies that offer genome testing to weed out in vitro fertilization babies, highlighting just one of the problems with the procedure. Noor Siddiq created Orchid Health to help parents decide which of their human embryonic children to implant and which to discard or leave frozen potentially forever. She is also a former winner of Peter Thiel's Thiel Fellowship. Recently resurfaced story in the New York Times has drawn criticism online, with experts pointing out the problem with Orchid's model. Though the story originally came out in April, it began circulating again in the past several days. Earlier this week, Nucleus Embryo released a similar tool to help weed out babies, drawing similar criticism. This baby was carefully selected as an embryo, reads a New York Times graphic posted by Siddiq along with her own comments. She said her mom went blind, but that she got lucky and did not develop blindness. She said her company helps everyone win the genetic lottery. End quote. You can see where this goes. There is no unified opposition to this because no one is taking a leadership position, no one with moral authority. The new pope has got a lot of capital right now, a lot of social capital. And he could use that to oppose this by making good appointments to the Pontifical Academy for Life. As Cardinal Eijk said. Maybe he should put Cardinal Eijk in charge of it. Just a thought. What do you think of this story? Are you that shocked that this kind of service is being offered and that it's legal? At the there was a big conference on bioethics in the Vatican recently, and one of the speakers, who had been addressed by the Pope earlier, talked about how most of the bioethics concerns in the West right now, the universities and oversight boards and things, they define ethics as whether or not something is legal according to the civil authorities. We've got a lot of work to do, ladies and gentlemen. Pray on this if you would. But let me know what you think of this in the comments, please. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. Sharing this on social media helps a lot, too. And if you've ever thought about supporting the work of Return to Tradition, we have a lot of options for that below, all asked for by supporters of the channel, like yourself, potentially. Patreon, Subscribe Star, the join button, all those kinds of things. It does keep these daily messages coming. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.